This happened to me when I was around 13. My dad lived 12 hours away, so in the summer when visiting, my mom would drive halfway, and my dad would meet her in the middle to drive the rest. At this time, I was just coming home, so my mom was picking me up. We had around a 6-hour drive ahead of us. The sun was pretty low in the sky, so I'm thinking this was around 7 p.m. About 40 minutes into the drive home, I remember looking out the passenger side window to the car next to us. They were in the slow lane, but they kept right up to my mom's car. The guy inside was a darker-skinned man and looked to be in his early 20s. The thing that was really unnerving was that he was grinning at me. Not like a friendly grin, but like a maniac movie serial killer grin. He barely looked at the road, and instead was turning frequently to stare at me. I turned to tell my mom about the freak next to us, but I noticed her hands were tight on the steering wheel, and she looked really tense. I'm not sure how long ago she noticed him, but it must have been a while before I did. I told her he was freaking me out, and she was basically like, "Yeah, I know, it's okay." We didn't talk much while it was happening. I think she was trying to concentrate or something. For over an hour, he followed us on the highway. At one point, there was a lot of traffic, but he wouldn't relent and kept right up with us. He always had a huge smile on his face. I remember being worried he would wreck into us because he was hardly watching the road. Whenever he was behind us, my mom would tell me to look forward and ignore him. I kept turning around to see him. The worst, though, was when he was on my side looking at me. I didn't want him to see me cry or freak out, so I kind of just sunk into the seat hoping he would stop. My mom switched lanes a lot to try to keep him on her side, but that didn't help much. He just kept staring and smiling. I was really starting to panic after a while. I kept thinking, what if he follows us home or runs us off the road? Up ahead, there was an exit for one of those Native American souvenir stores with a cafe and gas station attached. My mom took the exit at the last second while the creeper kept driving. I was still freaking out, but my mom took me inside, got us some food, and we sat and ate for a while. We were facing the window so we could see out, but his car never showed up. After that, my mom took me to the store portion to look around, I think to calm me down. I don't know if she called or talked to anyone. Eventually we left, and I remember asking my mom what if he comes after us again, and she said he wouldn't. Made it home safe and sound. I haven't talked to her about it since. I'm a 32-year-old female, and this is something that happened to me only 2 nights ago. My husband Kevin and I were on the porch smoking a cigarette. It was about 9 o'clock at night. We live in the woods, right off of a stretch of highway between 2 interstate exits. We were looking up at the stars, enjoying the quiet atmosphere of the crickets, glad to have a temporary relief from all of the usual traffic noise. I heard something and shushed my husband, even though he hadn't said anything. Was that screaming? Yes. It was a woman screaming like nothing I had ever heard before. It sounded like she was getting murdered. In between blood-chilling screams, she was screaming out, "Help me! Help me!" I looked at my husband. We were both really freaked out. The more she screamed, the closer she was getting to the house. I could eventually see a figure running along the median of the highway, making their way closer to the part of the highway that was in front of our house. Our house is a good ways back from our driveway, but not far enough that you can't see anything. If we could see her, that meant that she could see us. We have no yard security lights, so we were in complete darkness. We could still see the highway perfectly fine due to the house across from us, who still had their Christmas lights up. I threw my cig in my yard and backed up to stand in the doorway of the house, pulling out my phone to call 911. She is still in the median of the road, screaming. If anyone else in the surrounding houses heard her, they pretended like they didn't. Kevin runs past me inside to get on his jacket and shoes. I tell him not to go out there, but he ignores me and gets dressed anyway. As soon as he is out of sight, I see a red car barrel up the road and pull over next to where the lady was at. With her in the median, there was still a stretch of highway between them. There was a man driving. I couldn't see what he looked like. I only heard his voice. He was yelling that he was going to kill her and calling her a bitch. It looked like he was throwing stuff at her out of the window. As soon as she sees him pull over, she starts running straight towards our yard. By that time, I was already on the phone with the police officers. But as I said, I live out in the woods. Pretty far out of town, I'll add, so it would take them a bit to get there. I yell for my husband. I tell my 9-year-old son to go in our room where the baby is and close the door. He can hear the whole thing and was pretty frightened. My husband runs out onto the porch and into the yard towards her. He asks if she's okay, and she says that she had gotten a ride home from this guy, and halfway down the road he started acting really creepy. He refused to let her out where she told him to, and kept driving with her in the car. She looked behind her seat, pretending to look at a car behind them, and saw a roll of duct tape. Fearing for her life, she jumped out of the moving car and just started running down the road, screaming for help. Kevin starts to lead her towards the house, and by now is also on the phone calling the police, having gathered more information that I wasn't able to give them when I had called. They told him to stay on the line with them until an officer showed up. He lets her in the house, and her face looks terrible. She is red and bleeding in a couple of spots, road rash from when she had jumped out. She also said that he had hit her before she was able to escape. She came in, and we locked our door, knob, deadbolt, and chain. We stood together near the window waiting for the police to show up. I was trying not to lose my shit when there was a loud bang on our door. The man was yelling, "I know you're in there. I saw you running. The people in there can't protect you." I shouted through the door that he needed to leave our property, and if he was smart, get in his car and drive off. I told him we were on the phone with the police. The answer he gave was the worst one I could ever hear. He says, "Go ahead, call the police. I don't care. They won't be here in time." Bang, bang, bang on the door over and over. The woman was freaking out and crying, saying, "Help me, please help me," over and over again. I ran to the kitchen to get a large knife just in case. We had a huge, solid iron door, but our windows were easily breakable. If he wanted to get in badly enough, he certainly could. My husband just came from our bedroom with his gun when a squad car pulled up in the yard, 2 more following behind it, and 1 across the street where his car was. He took off on foot running. They tended to the woman and got her home safely. It had been 2 hours later, and they still hadn't found him. There are a lot of places to hide in these woods. I just hope he hides far away from here. In March of 2012, my fiancé, now husband, and I were on our way home from Tampa, Florida, where we decided to spend his last spring break ever since he was graduating from college that year. It was 2 a.m., and there was nobody else on the road but us. We were 10 hours into our 10-hour trip, with 2 more to go since our GPS messed up, and decided to take us through small towns on the South and North Carolina border, when all of a sudden, it started to pour. It was so bad that I had to pull over and take refuge under a bypass until it passed. After about 20 minutes, it let up enough that I could drive safely again, and off we went. Not even 10 minutes later, I'm in the right-hand lane driving over the speed limit when all of a sudden, this car comes out of nowhere in the left lane and passes us. There's speeding, and then there's speeding. Both my fiancée and I were wondering how stupid this guy was to be driving that fast in the rain when all of a sudden he slams on his brakes. He slammed on them so hard that we thought there was a deer in the road. Nope. Then we thought that maybe he was about to miss his exit. Nope. There wasn't one for another mile or two, and we didn't just pass one, so he couldn't have freaked about missing one either. What happened next sticks with me to this day, and I'm not someone that gets scared or creeped out all that easily. In fact, I usually just get really angry instead. But this still makes me nervous when I get on the road in the middle of the night. So after he slams on his brakes, we end up blowing past him, and I glanced at my rearview mirror to see what he was doing. I see him get in our lane and start speeding up. Right when he's on my ass, he puts his brights on. I thought maybe I had my brights on when he passed us, got pissed, and was being a douche about it. Nope, no brights on. I speed up to get away from him because my eyes are really sensitive to bright lights, and because I'm starting to get sketched out. No luck, he's still on my ass. I get into the left lane and slow down. He slows down and gets behind me. I switch back to the right-hand lane and speed up. Again, he's right behind me. My fiancé is starting to get creeped out and is telling me to lose him. The lane and speed switching continues for about another 10 minutes until I see that an exit's coming up and get an idea. I floor it and hit around 110, which is making me nervous because it's still raining. Putting enough distance between me and this guy to get on the exit, turn into some parking lot, turn off the lights, and hope that he wouldn't notice where we were. We didn't see him follow us, so we decided to wait a couple of minutes to make sure there was more than enough distance between him and us, and then got back onto the highway. When we got back on, there were now about 20 cars that we were merging into. I was going the speed of everyone else when something in the rearview mirror caught my eye. It was a car about 6 cars back weaving in and out of traffic. My fiancé turns around to look, and as this car gets closer to us, he realizes it's the exact same car that was following us. I sped up and noped the heck out of there. Fortunately for us, he got stuck behind a line of slow people, and our exit for the major interstate that we were already supposed to be on was coming up. As far as I know, he didn't follow us after that, and if he did, we were already too far away for him to do anything about it.